Welcome to PHP Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and it's time for another Monday mini-sode.
Yeah, Monday minis are where we get to focus in on one specific concept or idea, and we talk about it for about 10 or 15 minutes as opposed to our typical hour and 15, hour and a half episodes that we do every Wednesday. So if you're just checking us out on YouTube and you don't normally listen to our podcast, make sure to, either watch on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Check out PHP Podcast. We have episode drops every Wednesday, and it is significantly longer than this. But today we're talking about what's not always said in the reselling community. So if you're in the reselling community,
I would say what's not being said right now.
Yeah, right now, currently. So if you're follow people on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, there's certain things that kind of get either pushed under the rug or just aren't really addressed. And so we're going to be talking about some of those today.
The only reason I was adamant about that is that it seems to me right now, and this is the first one I'll bring up, and in our Discord, this has been discussed, and on Instagram, people feel comfortable, I think, with us that we always keep it real. And so, by the way, if you haven't joined our Discord, if you just go to patreon.com/PHP sign up for $5.55 a month, and that's 18 cents a day. You will find something in that Discord which will get your money back really quick. We're not a cook group; we're just a community of resellers. So check us out. That was our short plug there, real quick. But what people are talking about that in our Discord and even in some parts of social media, depending how the algorithm feeds you, you may get the impression that everything is really bad or that everything is really good. Right. And so right now, a lot of people are saying it's summer slowdown and this is normal. But I would say right now in reselling, this is not normal what's happening right now. And I don't think a lot of resellers are addressing this. Like, I do think there is a major decline that has happened in the last month. If you go, and again, but here's the thing, it's not slow for everyone. That's the other part.
Well, so then that's hard for you to say than that, right? Because that's your experience.
That's why I said it that way.
Right. So the hard thing is with something like this is it's really going to depend on what niche you're in. And like Orlando said, even the algorithm that you're kind of, the way the algorithm has been trained, and I'm talking about social media here, is what you're seeing. And so maybe things are really slow in the niche that you're in on eBay, or, as an economy, if you caught our last episode, it's really slow across the board, but there's going to be certain markets, there's going to be certain areas that are going to actually thrive and do well. So for some people, they may say, hey, my sales continue to go up, and other people are going to see a decline. And I think in general, if you were to take the average, it's probably going down more than typical, or maybe it is the typical summer slowdown. But if you combine the downturn economy, it's probably worse than it normally is for majority of people.
But there are some people that are thriving.
There's going to be some people,
and that's why I bring that up, because I can say, hey, I think there's something major going on. Things are slow. And then I'm sure somebody in the comments right now, if you want to comment, go for it. We'll say things have been the best ever this year.
Yeah. I think typically when you're talking about things like this, most people try and speak in generalities, because there's always going to be the exceptions, right? You could say you shouldn't play the lottery. Well, there's going to be the one person who bought one ticket one time and won. It's like, oh, you should play the lottery. So the hard thing is you can't always talk in the exceptions. So you can. I think it is fair to say, as a generality, many people are experiencing a slowdown. But the hard thing is, unless you actually have the numbers, other than saying like, retail market is down this percentage, the secondary market is down this percentage. Unless you have those numbers, all we really have to go off of is anecdotal evidence. And sometimes when you're in a bubble, your anecdotal evidence isn't actually the general experience. So 100%. It can be tough.
So it's funny you bring that up, because I had posted something on social media about how my sales were slow. And somebody had, commented like, yeah, things are really rough for us or bad. And I messaged those individuals, and I basically, the reason I messaged them was because other people are like, oh, things are great for us. They're great for us here. They're great for us here. And then I did some research on those individuals. I was able to find their eBay store, and they don't even sell close to what this other person sells. They're like, I would say even for myself, they maybe sell 1/10 of what I sell. Maybe.
But for them, that might be good. But it's all subjective.
But what I mean is, like, you can't base, how things are just from a couple comments on social media or on a YouTube, because I always say this, careful who you listen to. Like I'm there to be part of a community, but if I have somebody that's a small reseller that's only doing part-time and they're saying, oh yeah, things are excellent for me, well, I got to take that with a grain of salt, because that could mean they sold 2 items over 2 days and they haven't had 2 consistent days. Or for me, a bad day is, it's selling 2 items is like nothing to me. And I'm not saying that out of arrogance, but that happens no matter what. The question is, do I sell a certain dollar amount, right? And that dollar amount is far more important than if I sell 2 items. I'm going to sell the 2 items. That's not going to be the problem, right? But those 2 items could either be $100 for me, or it could be $1,000 for me, or for somebody else that could be $40 for them. And so, always be careful on who you listen to.
It's all subjective there. Another thing is, it's easy, especially if you're in the social media world, and we've talked about this in the past when it comes to social media things, but it's easy to think that you maybe aren't hustling as hard as other people, or compare yourself with others. And one of the problems that social media has, and I think we all understand this generally when it comes to like our normal everyday life, is that the social media version of your friend isn't usually the real version of your friend, in the sense of they're only going to post.
Are you including us in all that?
Well, most people are going to post their happiest moments, happiest things.
Yeah,
the picture, they're going to take 10 selfies before they post the one. They're going to make it seem candid. They're going to go only talk about, hey, I'm on this vacation. Look, I'm eating sushi. They're not going to say like, hey, I'm eating this dinner that I burnt, and I'm doing, like, most people show their highlights. And the same thing is true when it comes to hustlers, whether it's, you're hustling reselling or you're hustling something else. It's easy for most people to want to show and highlight the biggest things. Look, I went and I sold this thing, and I look at how hard I'm working today listing. And it's easy to think that this is every moment of every second for people like this. And the truth is, there are very, 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 very small percentage of people who hustle as hard as the Instagram or the social media world makes it seem like everybody does. There are very few people, and there are some of them, who can survive on 4 hours sleep and work 20 hours a day and are just nose to the grindstone all the time. That's such a small percentage of the population that it's almost not even worth counting. Most people, you might work really hard for a few hours here, you do a little bit, but if you're only posting your highlights, it's easy to feel like everybody's hustling all the time. And you can start to feel like you're not doing enough. And the problem is that leads to almost a competition that doesn't need to exist. You start to compare yourself with other people. You start to feel bad about yourself. You stress yourself out. You push yourself too hard and you burn out. And so you got to be careful to think that, if you're following a Gary Vee type person, to think that everybody's pulling a Gary Vee. And that's just not the case.
Yeah. Well, Gary Vee, yeah. Anyways.
Yeah.
He didn't balance everything well.
Yeah.
Even though we had the impression that he was.
I never had that impression. You might have.
I thought so. I thought it was awesome that he kept his private life private, but not anymore. All right. How about this one? And we kind of skipped this one over a little bit, but not everybody has all the answers. And the reason I say this is because Mike and I try to be very careful that we are documenting what we do. We're not saying we have all the answers. Now, do we have a lot of knowledge to share? Yeah, we do. I mean, I've been reselling for 10 years. Mike has been reselling for like 5 years now. Isn't that crazy?
Pretty crazy.
That is pretty crazy, right? Because we started off this podcast as Mike was a brand new reseller. Now, in the reselling world, Mike would be seen as an experienced reseller.
Ooh, I don't know about that. Maybe.
But yeah, okay. Yeah. But it's scary, true though, right? Yeah. I mean, by year 5, you're pretty experienced in reselling. I mean, as far as, not many people last that long. They usually are like bored with it or done with it or whatever, right? But I can't tell you how many times, I get this message and I see other people get messages and it's like, well, I do this, or, this is what works. This is what you need to do. And it's important to listen, but understand not everybody has the answers. There's so many other things that are unknowable, right? So, you may not know somebody's family situation. You may not know somebody's, capital situation. You may not know somebody's geographic situation. There's so many things. So I'm always a big fan that in the reselling community, I think people need to empathize more than lecture more people. And because I really do think a lot of people feel like they have all the answers. And so other people submit to that And then when they submit to that and the model doesn't work for them that they had thought was going to work, they give up on reselling. So from day one, I've been very big. Mike's been big on this, is you have to find the model that works for you. So understand that not everybody has all of the answers.
Yeah. And our next thing is a lot of times resellers have other forms of income. And so when you're looking in resellers online, especially if you're looking at big YouTubers, this is one area we've talked about in the past, is that a YouTuber might make $200, $300, $400 on a single YouTube video. So it's a little bit easier for some of them to go to a garage sale, do a big buyout. I'll give you $100 for all this stuff. And it could be kind of like junk. And wow, look at, they bought this stuff and they sold, but they know that it's almost free, the stuff that they're getting, because they're going to make so much on the video that they're really buying the stuff to make the content. And so they could take bigger risks. They don't need to make as much on the items they flip. And so it's hard. You can't compare yourself with what they're doing, because if you could go to every garage sale and know, hey, the first $500 I spend is free, I think we'd all be doing it a little bit differently, right? So you've got to be careful when you're looking at other people and you're seeing that, because not everybody recognizes that the big YouTubers who are getting 20, 30,000 views or more per video, they're making several $100s per video that they make. And so they're putting in the content. They've built their audience. I'm not blaming them at all for that.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing. I would love for us to be those guys, or gals. But the thing is, we're speaking as to all of you that are new, that don't have YouTube channels. Like, be aware that, you know, people can make riskier buys. People can sell stuff for less margin because their income is not based on their reselling. Their income is based on a video, right? And so that's a huge, you know, difference. I mean, for myself, when I'm out there, I can't spend $500 and go, well, the video is going to cover this. It's like, no, if I don't make this $500, I might have lost that $500. Yep. So, and that's a great point. That's a great point. And this last one, you know, I see this a lot lately. And everybody's saying, like, I'm gonna hustle. And, you know, I'm gonna put aside family. I'm gonna put aside this because I'm gonna retire. I'm gonna do well. And now, you know, I'm in my 40s, and everything I've looked into, everything I researched, all the older people I know, is that retirement is not bliss. Actually, the studies show that when you retire and you don't do nothing, the stats are that you will die sooner.
Yeah, we're built to have some kind of purpose. Like and that could change. Like, I'm not saying like the 9 to 5 is where everybody should be locked in at, but you need some kind of work or some kind of focus and purpose. Maybe that is, you know, your family. Maybe that's, you know, starting some kind of a nonprofit or working for a nonprofit. But a lot of people have this idea that they're just going to basically vacation for the rest of their life when they retire. And that gets really boring really fast for people, unless maybe you've got kids or grandkids that you're like, I'm going to go spend time with them and I'm going to help them, you know, do things. So then you still have a purpose. But I definitely think that's one of those goals that the influencers kind of dangle out there. It's like, retire by the time you're 30 if you do this and this. And honestly, unless you're retiring so that you can focus more on this other passion or desire you have, if it's just retirement for retirement's sake, man, what happens once you get your golf score below whatever number you were hoping, and you're like, man, this is actually kind of boring.
Well, I also bring this up because Mike and I both, you know, have families, right? And I could scale, and I could, you know, I've said this multiple times, like, you know, could I be $1 million seller? I don't know if I could do that on eBay, but I could scale out on Amazon if I wanted to. But what am I going to sacrifice, right? I have 2 more years of my oldest son, and he goes off to college. And, you know, this summer I could hustle like there's no other summer, but that's one less summer I'm going to have with my son, right? I need to live in the present. I need to live in the now. And so if that means I'm not going to be a seven-figure reseller, I'm okay with it. Now, if you're in your 20s and it's just you, go for it, right? But many of you that listen to us, right, have kids, have family, right? Or maybe you don't have kids and you have a significant other. Like, there's only going to be so many opportunities at a certain stage in life that you're going to be able to do things. And so I really encourage you to not make retirement your end goal. I think you need a plan for retirement. I think you need to be wise, but live in the present. Understand that maybe, you know, making, you know, 7 figures isn't the end all. Maybe it's, you know, the 7 hours you could spend that day going on a hike or going on a trip or whatever it is with your family. Those moments that you'll never be able to get that. And I know I'm sounding very, very fatherly right now, but what I would give to have my kids be Mike's kids' age again. Right? My kids are now, one's 11, the other one's 17 and almost 17, and it's not the same anymore. And man, I cherish those times, and those times will never ever come back again. So realize that ROI isn't just about the money, and I don't think that's being said enough in the reselling community, along with everything else. With that being said, make sure to be real,
be relevant,
and be reselling. Peace.